5 worst finishes in WWE history. Number 5. Umaga, Samoan Spike. Eddie Fatu was a Samoan-American professional wrestler, best known under the ring name Umaga. His character was built as this unstoppable force weighing in at 350 pounds. However, his finishing move, the Samoan Spike, didn't do any justice in conveying his character's destructive nature. The Samoan Spike was essentially a high-speed thumb jab to the opponent's throat. Granted, a quick jab to a throat will do some damage, however, surely not enough to knock someone out. For a wrestler of his size, a signature splash would have been much better, as opposed to a measly thumb strike to the throat. Number 4. The Great Khali, the Khali Chop. The Great Khali was a giant when it came to wrestling, towering at 7 feet and 1 inches, and debuted on the 7th of April 2006 in an episode of SmackDown, attacking The Undertaker. Surely, the Great Khali, he must have a deadly finisher to accompany his giant destructive gimmick. Well, I'm afraid this is not the case. His finisher was as dull as Roman Reigns' Superman punch. The finishing move involved Khali waiting for his unsuspecting opponent to face him, until he would karate chop their head with full force. Although the move could cause a concussion, Khali's lack of athleticism and speed only made the finisher even less believable. Number 3. Mick Foley, Mandible Claw. The Mandible Claw, or Mr. Socko, as it's otherwise known as, was a finishing move of hardcore legend Mick Foley. The Mandible Claw is a maneuver that involves Foley putting a smelly sock over his hand before placing his middle and ring fingers into his opponent's mouth. The move compresses the nerves in the jaw and renders the opponent's jaw paralysed. Although highly entertaining, the move is in no way enough to finish off an opponent. Chris Jericho even commented on the move, saying, "I don't like Mr. Foley's Mr. Socko because it doesn't do anything. He puts a stinky sock in your mouth and you fall down. The last thing I want is a dirty sock pulled out of a guy's pants and then shoved into my mouth." Number 2. Scotty 2 Hotty, the Worm. To give this guy credit, the Worm was pure entertainment. However, in terms of being a finisher, the move was just farcical. The Worm was in essence a backhanded chop to a lying opponent that would be executed basically a minute after a silly dance routine was performed. He would stand over his downed opponent with a big expression on his face, and then would hop 4 times to the other end of the ring while the crowd chanted W-O-R-M, do the worm, and then finally sway his arms around in the air, striking his fallen opponent with a backhand chop. The whole build-up was just for a lousy chop to the face. Although amusing, the move itself definitely should not be considered a finisher, as the fallen opponent would most likely have gotten up by the time he's done dancing. Number 1. Santino Marella, the Cobra. Words cannot describe how stupid this finishing move actually was. Santino Marella was one of the funniest performers in wrestling entertainment, and his finisher was a reflection of his comedic character. Morella's finishing move involved him taking a sock puppet snake from his vest, putting a sock over his hand, slapping his forearm to summon the snake, and then turning his head and yelling "Cobra," before eventually striking his opponent in the throat or face. I cannot comprehend how the Cobra Strike was deemed as a finishing move. However, the maneuver surprisingly had a pretty good success rate when executed, putting away many opponents. As Morella's gimmick was hugely entertaining, I guess we could forgive him for his finishing move, as you have got to admit, it is pretty damn hilarious to watch. Before this video ends, I had to showcase this absolutely bizarre move that was actually a finishing move in professional wrestling. This is not WWE, however, I had to include this on this list because it's sheer stupidity. The finisher, performed by Joe Ryan, doesn't even have a name, but to summarise the move, it literally involves Joey tugging on his opponent's crotch, which in turn causes agonising screams from the opponent.